Nicole Knowlton would describe herself as a neurodivergent specialist. She has personal and family experience with autism, ADHD, PTSD, and PMDD. Her education and training includes a focus on ASD and ADHD assessments, marriage and family therapy, family law, and conflict resolution among neurodivergent individuals, couples, and families. She is also awaiting her license as an MFT and preparing for the bar exam this summer. Nicole was diagnosed with ASD and ADHD late in life, and it was thanks to her children that she obtained the correct diagnosis. She is divorced after a 13-year neurodiverse relationship and was initially drawn into this area to do her part to spread awareness, help identify other untreated or undiagnosed autistics, and help families and couples separate with a long-term plan of success. She had a very messy divorce, and if she had the right information, everyone would have suffered so much less. Nicole is so grateful when families opt to mediate divorce when there are children involved. Hey, Nicole, it's so great to see you. And, I had so many great conversations with you when you were a guest co-host for the Neurodiverse Love podcast. So I'm so glad that you were able to present at the Neurodiverse Love conference. Thank you so much.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you, Mona. It's so good to see you again. And I'm just grateful to be able to be part.
Thank you so much. And I know the topic we're going to discuss today is something I don't think I've ever talked about before, and it's neurodiverse mediation. And I know this is something that is your area of expertise and you do a lot of. So maybe we can start by having you share a little bit about what neurodiverse mediation entails. How is it different?
Okay, so neurodiverse mediation is different in that I specialize in working with adults and families that are neurodivergent. Most clients are autistic. They might have ADHD or PTSD or any combination of the three. Most of my cases involve divorce or parenting plan development. And I'm just starting to do some estate and trust disputes. And that's, becoming more prevalent due to the aging population.
Sure.
And can you guess which one is the messiest, the most difficult to navigate?
Yeah, I'm guessing the estate one because I know what it was like in my family. It was crazy.
You're absolutely
Am I right?
Yeah. Yes. It's so difficult for families that have, lifetime of history and sibling issues. And relationships, unfortunately end if they don't handle the process, in a healthy way or a productive way. It's really sad. So
yeah. So,
people are able to find options.
Yeah. So for those folks that aren't familiar with mediation to begin with, but specifically neurodiverse mediation, what is involved? What do you do to help families in this process? What does it look like?
Mediation is an option where, I'll use divorce as an example. Some individuals believe that you need to hire an attorney, both parties hire an attorney, and then they go to court and they have all of their assets, parenting plans, custody, support, all of that is worked out with their lawyers and a judge. And so that is very expensive and it's very contentious. The law is really not set up to best support a family, a long-term relationship in the family, and certainly not in the best interest of the children, because preserving that relationship is so critical for parents and, for families and with children. And so what a mediator does is I meet with the parties and I help facilitate the settlement agreement, the parenting plan. We meet, we do what's considered transformational work where it's not just litigation or just talking about assets and things of that nature. It's more about, for example, when we do custody arrangements and think about the children, we do an exercise where we imagine you're at a wedding, your child's wedding, and both parents are there. How do you want that energy to be? How do you want that relationship to be? Think of your child. And so, most individuals that use attorneys or go through litigation and not mediation, they're not thinking long term, right? They're just in the moment. There's so much emotion, and it's not considering how to preserve the relationship long term. And so, that's kind of that's what a mediator does, is you come in and you try to help everybody get a little bit of what they want.
Right.
And, nobody ever gets everything that they want, but it's a conversation meeting to help just get the best outcome possible for the family.
Yeah, I can only imagine how difficult that would be for folks that have young children to kind of think in the future, how are we going to want to preserve some kind of compassionate, communication when things, go awry with our kids? How can we be supportive of each other? How can we be supportive of our kids? I think, Nicole, you were the first person who mentioned nesting to me on one of our podcast episodes, and I had never heard of it. And, is that something that you talk to folks about when you're doing the mediation process? And maybe you can explain what that is.
Sure. So let me just throw out a number, which is really just upsetting. And that's that 75% of couples that have a special needs child get divorced. 75%. That's higher than the average, which is, about 50% of divorce. And that's usually because of, different reasons. And what that means is that there is especially a need to address a way to have a long-term plan with neurodivergent families. And I didn't mention, what makes it different. And that was that I'm working with individuals who have unique responses to stress. And something that, it really isn't known yet is how to navigate neurodivergent individuals in that sort of environment.
Yeah.
I attended a program, a master's in dispute resolution, and one of our courses was on high conflict individuals, difficult people that are not able to really work through the process of a mediation. And the characterization of these individuals is usually a personality disorder. And there is a specific, approach with that, which does not work with individuals that are autistic or with ADHD or PTSD. There's, biological things, neurological things that you need to be thinking about. And, there's things that happen in, neurodivergent mediation that could really send the wrong message. Like, for example, individuals may seem checked out.
Sure.
They may become angry or emotionally dysregulated. They may get up and walk out because, they're overwhelmed and leave.
Right.
And they may experience, traumatic flashbacks. They need extra time to process, sensory accommodations. And, all these things can delay or derail a mediation process. And then if that's happening, that's not understood properly, that can lead to litigation because it's not working. Let's go hire lawyers and now go to court. And now the neurodivergent person who maybe isn't, identified is presenting to the court as being difficult, rigid, unhelpful. And, that could work against them. And
Right.
so it's just so important to be informed and go to someone who understands neurodivergence and can help navigate the process and provide, the right environment, the right timeline, and just the right tools to, have a successful outcome. And now tell me again what your question was,
Yeah. Well,
because I got the sidetracked.
I want you to talk about the nesting, but before you do,
Oh, yes.
I want to take this a little bit further because this is such a new topic, I'm sure for a lot of people. I really want to hone in on all the things that you just said that could happen in a
Mm-hmm.
mediation process and could be seen through a non-neurodivergent lens and then can lead to litigation, because this is probably going to resonate with a lot of people who have gone through maybe a mediation not knowing their partner or they themselves are neurodivergent, and then
Mm-hmm.
went to litigation, cost them thousands and thousands of dollars and untold emotional stress. But if
Mm-hmm.
they had gone to somebody like you, it would have been a
Mm-hmm.
whole different process.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And also, I want to thank you because I've received, some referrals or clients from you that have, been looking for information or services. And they were new in the process of even talking to their partner about getting a divorce, about
Mhm.
using, mediation. And there's a whole strategy to even get to that place because, some people, they really need time. They need to, have the right approach. And so it's a individual tailored process for each family. Each couple is different.
So it's not a cookie cutter process. So there isn't
No.
like a 1, 2, 3, this is what it's going to look like. It's really dependent on each couple or family.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay. So let's give folks like a description of what nesting is, and then we'll go back to the mediation piece.
Okay. So nesting, it's also referred to as bird nesting. It is where you maintain one home and the parents leave and they go to another home or place where they're staying, and you just rotate and you have one parent, but you keep the children or child in their space with their routine, with their same bedroom.
Mhm.
Everything stays the same for the child because
Mm.
that is so hard for them to go back and forth and have their life disrupted. And not everybody can do that. What I have found working with neurodivergent couples versus neurotypical couples is that there is this remarkable ability to have a modern family. You
Mm.
can create whatever you want
Yeah.
because there can be this acceptance that, what, our family needs to have a unique schedule, setup, system because we're unique, and they're able to do alternative, things like bird nesting, where, sometimes that's really tough for couples,
Sure.
but it's a great way of transitioning. I've done it multiple times myself. It's not easy. Initially, it's tough, but it's so good for the children. I cannot tell you how, when you have children that have ADHD, for example,
Mm.
shuffling back and forth, if there's sports and
Yeah.
there's, scheduling and homework and books, and you've got a parent with ADHD, forget it. It's so
Yeah.
difficult. It's
Yeah.
just, it is, impossible almost.
Yeah.
And it really takes that out of the equation. It just makes the transition so much easier. And
For the
some people just
kids.
keep doing it. Yeah, for the children.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's who we really need to focus on, because, it's first of all, the court is, deferring. Everything is in the, child's best interest.
Right.
But also because, parents don't want their child to be I hate to say the word scarred, or,
Yeah, suffering more than
Just
they have to, yeah.
suffering. Thank you so
Yeah,
Yes, that's exactly right. So
yeah,
it's a great way to go about it if you can,
yeah,
and
I
do it as
love
long as you can.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
just it's helpful.
I love it. I love it because in most divorce situations or separation situations, one of the parents is most likely moving out. So if the children can stay in their home and the parents can move out, whether it's weekly or biweekly or whatever, it just makes so much sense. The parents are, able to handle it probably a lot better than the children would going from place to place. So thank you so much for sharing that. So
Sure.
what do you think the benefit is of working with you or someone like you who specializes in working with neurodivergent folks when they're looking for a mediator?
I think it's essential for a neurodiverse family, or if there's neurodivergence among the parents and even the children. Not so much in creating the parenting plan. Um, you can learn and be familiar with, how to do a special education type of parenting plan. That's not the hardest part. But as you know, I'm autistic with ADHD and some PTSD.
Mhm,
And so I have a familiarity
mhm.
with what it's like to be on the other side. And I
Right.
wish I would have done mediation.
I hear
We
you.
did not. We did not do that. And so having a person who understands what's going on internally, who
Mhm,
understands what can come up as a roadblock,
mhm,
as an impasse, uh,
mhm.
and who can suspend incorrect judgments on
Yes,
what's happening in the mediation room and what's happening outside of the mediation room,
right.
right? You don't want someone who is making judgments that are inaccurate, that could have a negative outcome, which we're human, and
Yeah,
so there's always bias. Cognitive bias is just unavoidable. You have to work on it. That's something that they train you in mediation school, but you're still, we're imperfect,
yeah,
so it's hard to do that, right?
yeah,
And that could influence. Mediators don't make decisions for you, but when it comes to the parenting plan, when you're coming to solutions to help the families,
right.
it might if it appears as if one of the parents is just difficult and um, presenting in a way that would be unhelpful for the outcome. It could have a negative um, effect, and plus if it could lead to mediate or litigation,
Yeah.
right? If they don't know how to help the couple get through the process and come together and collaborate,
Mhm.
then it blows up, and
Yeah,
then you're going to lawyers and you're
yeah,
litigating, and
yeah.
and then it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, on so many levels,
Um,
financially, emotionally, and I can imagine a mediator who isn't neurodiverse affirming or knowledgeable watching a meltdown or seeing a shutdown and reading that as something very different than what it is. And a partner who isn't familiar and doesn't totally understand neurodivergence, but is ready to end the relationship, not knowing what is occurring either. But you, with your expertise and your lived experience, could step in and explain what's happening and lead the couple or the family in a different direction once they understand. Yeah, I'm picturing you in, a conference room helping folks go through this process, and I'm sure that it is life-changing, life-changing. So, thank you for that. So, I know there's another area that, you and I have talked about, but I don't know that we talked about it on the podcast, that can also impact the mediation process, and that's PMDD and
mhm,
perimenopause and menopause.
mhm,
And I will
mhm.
tell you, Nicole, I don't I don't know how much any of those were impacting me during my pre-separation, separation, and then after the divorce. Because, I didn't go through menopause until I was 55. I was fully menopausal. I divorced, I think I was 53 when we separated, and I think 55 when I divorced. So all those years, I didn't know what was going on in my body. And God only knows what I put my ex-husband through. So help us understand how those things can be viewed differently by a mediator like you.
I have so many thoughts in my head, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to come at this.
Okay, take your time.
First of all, this is a conversation that is really uncomfortable for a lot of people. And so for all your listeners, thank you for hanging in here because, this is such an important aspect of mediation, couples work, understanding neurodivergent women, because there are very high statistics of neurodivergent women that have PMDD. And that's, extreme PMS and menopause, perimenopause. Why it is so impactful for neurodivergent individuals is because of the hormonal changes and the sensitivity to that. And so there is almost even more of an exacerbated impact taking place the 2 weeks before the menstruation, if you are in menstruation stage of your life. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not giving medical advice, just sharing anecdotally what I've come to learn, and also from my clients, from other women, myself. We do not have enough research, we do not have enough information, and we absolutely don't talk about it because of the stigma.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember this. This was like back in 2015, where there was an interview, and there was a politician who made a comment about the news professional who was a female, and asked the politician a tough question, and the politician said publicly, this woman had to have been bleeding from her eyes or bleeding from whatever, wherever. Like, that's a quote.
Wow.
And it is just, I think, encapsulates the harmfulness of the stigma with this, right? It is used as a weapon. It's used to degrade women, to invalidate them. And I think it's just misunderstood. And there it just isn't enough information, and it's not, widely talked about. So
Right.
I'm just so glad that we're able to talk about it today.
Me too.
Not only because of, the fact that it is so important in neurodivergent individuals and in relationships, neurodiverse couples, but also for all women, right? Now, what I want to share is that, again, anecdotally, I've noticed when working with couples that the 2 weeks before menstruation, in the luteal phase, that is when, the hormones are fluctuating. And that means that they did some studies on this. If you're taking antidepressants, if you're taking ADHD medications, they stop working, or they're not as effective, right? And so there's a whole process that you have to go through with your OBGYN or whomever is, diagnosing your medications to cater to that. So not only are your hormones fluctuating, but now your medications are also not working. So it is like a double whammy. It is really tough. It's really tough. And we don't usually know what's going on unless we're informed, unless someone has educated us or someone else is experiencing it. It's just not, widely talked about. And so, I think that, if there are any listeners that have noticed that about themselves, talk to your doctor and, take a look and see if that's showing up for you. For couples, I have a strategy with them where I want them to talk about it. I'm always surprised to see, how willing men are, the husbands.
Mhm.
Many of them are aware of it already, and
Sure.
they notice the pattern.
Right.
And if they get an app, if they put it on the calendar, they're able to, understand that their partner is extra vulnerable during that period of time because of the fluctuations. It's not an opportunity to weaponize it or invalidate them. Just, don't have the fight. If there's a conversation that you want to bring up,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the time. Just wait and, wait until, that phase is passed. With regard to mediation, this is something that is educational. I like to inform couples if they're not already aware of it. It's a very delicate conversation, right? And I do
Sure.
meet with the individuals one-on-one initially before we start, the mediation. And there's, a lot of things that we cover, and so having that awareness
Mm-hmm.
um, is is helpful for the individual. I don't, bring it up to them and ask, where are you in your luteal phase? Let's schedule it then. But that's not a bad idea,
Right.
to be honest.
Right.
Schedule
Right.
it when you're not in your luteal phase. That is like the best time for, problem solving, and when you're not as, vulnerable. So, that's how it's beneficial. It's beneficial, I think, with couples work. And then also, when you come to the place, if you're, things aren't working out, and you're seeking a
Yeah.
divorce. Yeah, it's so important.
I can't e I can't even imagine how helpful this is gonna be for folks that recognize that certain times of the month, their neurodivergent partner is a very different person than the person they know and see throughout the rest of the month. And for those that are going through a separation or a divorce or some other kind of much more challenging situation, to look at that pattern in your neurodivergent female partner, I think can be really, really helpful because I'm guessing for those people that experience PMDD and don't know it, or going through perimenopause and maybe don't know it, because not all of us know when that starts.
Mhm.
Looking at patterns can really make a difference. I mean, I've seen that, in my life, but I didn't know it early on, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
when you're in the throes of it. And that's a good point, to, continue with the high numbers among neurodivergent females.
Mhm.
Menopause it can be really difficult, especially if you've got PMDD. There is an increase in suicidal ideation
Mm.
for women going through menopause, um, especially if neurodivergent. And so it's so important to, be actively seeing your doctor and staying on top of that, because
Mhm.
that's just so difficult and so much suffering. And it
Mhm.
makes sense that we're, considering divorce, or we're separating from our partner, because if we don't have it taken care of, or we're
Right,
just at, our limit,
right.
that's, taking a big part of.
It's taking a toll on our emotions, and we're not maybe aware of it, and we're seeing through things through a very emotional lens, at least part of the month, and I think it stays with us, if we don't have either a therapist or if we decide to go on medication or we have a toolbox to work through that. I'm thinking about my own marriage, and it's just like every time, I've thought about this, I guarantee you that that was one of the issues that I was dealing with, and I didn't know I was ADHD at the time. So, Nicole, this has been a phenomenal, conversation, but I'm wondering if there's any other additional information you wanna share before we close out that either has been helpful to clients or you yourself have experienced that you wanna share?
Sure. I would just like to wrap up with a little 5P acronym that I like, which
Okay.
is proper Preparation prevents poor performance.
I love that.
And what that means is if you can prepare and you're aware of the storm coming, then it makes things so much easier. It makes it easier to ask for help, to connect, to care for yourself and be gentle with yourself, because sometimes we don't know what's going on. We can feel like we're going crazy. We can feel like, we may get a misdiagnosis because of what we're going through, and we may hold on to conclusions that we draw during that luteal phase. And then we carry it over and we think that, then we have to take actions based on that, rather than understanding that our body is just, going through changes. So I like to have, individuals just be aware and plan so that they're ready for it. Even though when you're in the midst of it, it still sometimes isn't helpful to know that that's what's going on.
Right.
But the more informed we are, the better, our lives will be and the less suffering we'll have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you're doing this work. And for those that might want to reach out to you and are interested in talking to you about mediation, they either know they're neurodivergent or they suspect that they or their partner is. What is the best place for them to contact you?
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I have a website, NicoleKnowlton.com. You can contact me. I would be happy to answer any questions. Like I said, sometimes there's a strategy to even get to the point of mediation. You can go to the website and I have information there, and I offer a free consultation. And that's the best way to find me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nicole. This is going to be helpful, I know, to a lot of people who are struggling. So I really appreciate you being here at the conference.
I hope so. Thank you so much, Mona. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.